He used to fall asleep holding me, now he fell asleep whispering to her. I didn't suspect a thing until I heard him say, "I wish I could tell you how I really feel." My heart pounded as I stood outside the door, listening to the words he should have been saying to me. The next morning, I kissed his cheek and whispered, "If you could say anything to the love of your life, what would it be?" He smiled, "I tell you everything already." I met his eyes and said, "Then why did you tell her you can't?" His face went pale, and that's when he realized I knew he had given his heart to someone else. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story here, but after reading so many of your experiences, I feel compelled to share mine. Maybe it will help someone else who's going through something similar. My name is Sarah, and I've been married to James for 10 years. We met during our sophomore year at the University of Washington in Seattle. James was studying computer science, and I was pursuing a degree in marketing. Our connection was instant. We bonded over late-night study sessions at Sazalo Library, shared coffee breaks at the local cafe on University Way, and weekend hikes in the Cascade Mountains. After graduation, we decided to stay in Seattle, a city we both loved deeply. James landed a job as a software engineer at a prominent tech company downtown, while I started working at a marketing firm not far from Pike Place Market. Our life together felt like a dream. We moved into a cozy apartment in Capitol Hill, a neighborhood known for its vibrant art scene and historic charm. Evenings were spent cooking together, exploring new restaurants, or simply enjoying each other's company. Our shared love for the outdoors led us to frequent trips to Discovery Park, where we'd watch the sunset over Puget Sound. Friends often commented on how perfect we seemed together, and I believed it too. However, over the past few months, I began to notice subtle changes in James. He started coming home later than usual, often citing increased workloads and tight deadlines. While this wasn't entirely out of character given his profession, the frequency raised some concerns. Our conversations became more superficial, lacking the depth and warmth they once had. He seemed distant, often lost in thought, and there was a noticeable decline in our intimacy. One evening, after another silent dinner, James announced that he had an early meeting the next day and decided to go to bed early. I stayed up, attempting to distract myself with a book, but my mind kept drifting to the growing chasm between us. Determined to bridge the gap, I decided to join him in bed. As I approached our bedroom, the door was slightly ajar. I was about to enter when I heard James's voice. At first, I thought he was speaking to me, but as I listened, it became clear he was on the phone. His voice was soft, almost a whisper, filled with an emotion I hadn't heard in a long time. "I wish I could tell you how I really feel," he murmured. My heart stopped. Who was he talking to? What feelings was he referring to? I stood frozen outside the door, a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me. Betrayal, confusion, anger, and an overwhelming sadness. The next morning, I decided to confront him. I prepared breakfast as usual, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling our apartment. James entered the kitchen, looking refreshed and oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "Morning," he greeted, planting a quick kiss on my cheek. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile. "Sleep well?" "Yeah, surprisingly." "That early night did me good," he said, taking a seat at the table. I sat across from him, gathering my courage. "James, if you could say anything to the love of your life, what would it be?" He looked up from his plate, a puzzled expression on his face. "I tell you everything already, don't I?" I met his gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. "Then why did you tell her you can't?" The color drained from his face. His fork clattered onto his plate, and he stared at me, wide-eyed. "Sarah, Tears welled up in my eyes as I waited for him to continue, but the silence was deafening. "Who is she, James?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "It's not what you think," he began, but I cut him off. "Don't insult me by denying it. I heard you. Just tell me the truth." He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "Her name is Olivia. She's a colleague from work. We've been talking for a few months now." "Talking?" I echoed, my voice laced with disbelief. "Is that what they're calling it these days?" "It's not physical, Sarah. I swear." But I developed feelings for her, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Our entire relationship flashed before my eyes, the memories, the promises, the dreams. All tainted by his confession. I need some time, I said, standing up abruptly. I can't do this right now. I grabbed my coat and left the apartment, needing to escape the suffocating walls that had witnessed our unraveling. I wandered the streets of Seattle, the city's usual vibrancy muted by the haze of my emotions. I found myself at Cary Park, a spot we'd often visit to take in the breathtaking view of the skyline. As I sat on a bench overlooking the city, memories flooded back, the day James proposed, right here at this very spot, with the Space Needle standing tall in the background. The joy, the love, the certainty I felt that day, it all felt like a cruel joke now. Days turned into weeks. James moved out to give me space, and I immersed myself in work, trying to find solace in routine. Friends reached out, offering support, but I often found myself retreating into solitude. Nights were the hardest. The emptiness of our bed, the absence of his presence, it was a constant reminder of the betrayal. One evening, as I was sorting through some old boxes, I stumbled upon a photo album from our college days. Flipping through the pages, I saw the evolution of our relationship, the laughter, the adventures, the love that once was. Tears streamed down my face as I mourned the loss of what we had. I knew I had a decision to make. Forgiveness wasn't something that came easily to me, especially when trust had been shattered. But I also couldn't ignore the years we'd spent building a life together. The thought of throwing it all away was unbearable. James reached out, expressing his remorse and a desire to seek counseling together. He admitted to his emotional affair, acknowledging the pain he'd caused and his willingness to do whatever it took to rebuild our relationship. I was torn. The logical part of me screamed to walk away, to protect myself from further pain. But my heart, despite everything, still held love for him. I agreed to counseling, not as a promise of reconciliation, but as a step towards understanding him, myself, and whether we could find our way back to each other. The journey was arduous. Trust, once broken, isn't easily mended. There were days filled with anger, resentment, and doubt. But there were also moments of clarity, of rediscovering the connection that initially drew us together. I won't say that everything is perfect now. Healing is a continuous process, and some scars remain. But we're trying, taking it one day at a time, learning to communicate, to be vulnerable, and to rebuild the foundation that was shaken. The counseling helped. Or at least, it felt like it did at first. James was showing up. He was on time, open, emotional in ways I hadn't seen in years. He cried during one session. Said he hated himself for what he did. Said he missed us. There was a moment, one small second, where I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. But then something started to feel off again. It was small things at first. The way his phone was always on silent during our sessions, but buzzed constantly the moment we got home. The way he'd suddenly step out for air during the evenings we were supposed to be reconnecting. And then the worst one, he changed his passcode. James never changed his passcode. I asked him about it one night while we were brushing our teeth. He froze, toothbrush midair, and said, "Oh, the company made us change it. Security stuff." I looked at him through the mirror. He didn't even blink when he lied. That was the first night I couldn't sleep again. I started watching him more closely. I wasn't trying to be obsessive. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. I kept reminding myself, he said he was committed. He said he was sorry. He said he wanted to fix us. But then came the twist that knocked the breath out of me. 2 weeks later, I went into his old laptop to find a recipe we used to love. He hadn't used it in a while, but I remembered it had a favorites folder in the browser. I wasn't snooping. I really wasn't. But curiosity is a quiet voice that grows louder when you're not getting answers. I found a document on the desktop. It was a Word file simply named O. I opened it. It was a letter. Not to me. To her. Olivia. He hadn't stopped. He never stopped. It wasn't even just one letter. It was a whole folder of unsent messages. Long, emotional, poetic letters full of thoughts and confessions and longing. Some were dated after our counseling started. After the tears. After the I miss us. After the promise. I didn't cry right away. I sat there, staring at the screen like it might morph into something else. Anything else. One line gutted me. You make me feel alive in ways I forgot were possible. I wish I could tell the truth. I wish I didn't feel like I owed her anything anymore. Her. That's me. I owed her 10 years. A life. A marriage. I had become a debt to him. The rage came quietly, like a tide. I didn't scream. I didn't call him at work. I just closed the laptop and sat in our living room, staring out the window, watching rain slide down the glass. Seattle rain. Cold and constant. That night, I cooked dinner. His favorite salmon with lemon and dill. Set the table. Candles and all. Played our old playlist. I wanted it to be perfect. I needed it to be. He came home smiling. Kissed me on the cheek. Said, "Wow, this is nice." We sat. Ate. Talked about nothing. Then I looked up and said calmly, "Who's the real Sarah to you? Me? Or the idea of me you feel guilty for betraying?" He stopped chewing. What? I kept my eyes on him. You said you owed me. Not loved me. Not miss me. Owed. Like I'm some burden. He pushed his plate away. Where is this coming from? I stood, walked to the kitchen, and came back holding his laptop. I didn't have to say anything. He saw the screen. The open folder. The time-stamped letters. James closed his eyes, leaned back in his chair, and exhaled like he'd been caught exhaling someone else's name. I was going to delete them, he said weakly. Why didn't you? I don't know. But he did know. He still loved her. And that was the moment I knew the worst part. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just a bad choice. He chose her. Over and over again. Even while pretending to choose me. I walked into our bedroom, shut the door, and locked it. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling all night, wide awake. That morning, he knocked. Sarah, can we talk? I didn't answer. He knocked again. Please. Silence. Then he slid a note under the door. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. Because sometimes silence says more than screaming ever could. And sometimes the biggest question isn't, why did he do this? But how much more can I take? I didn't read the note right away. I watched it from across the room like it might burst into flames. It sat there, half tucked under the door, mocking me. Part of me wanted to rip it up without reading it. The other part wanted to know if he had finally decided to tell the truth. The truth was, I already knew what it would say. It'd be the same as always. I'm sorry. I love you. It meant nothing. Let's fix this. The same lines worn thin from overuse. Still, after an hour of pacing and 3 cups of cold coffee, I picked it up. He had written only one sentence. I need to tell you something about Olivia, please. That was it. Not, I want to fix this. Not, I'm sorry. Just, I need to tell you something. It wasn't a confession. It was a setup. I opened the door. He was standing there like he had aged 10 years overnight. Hair unkempt. Eyes red. He didn't say anything at first. I stepped aside. Talk. He came in, sat on the edge of the couch, hands shaking. Then he dropped a bomb I didn't see coming. She's pregnant. I blinked. My ears rang. My vision went blurry around the edges, like my brain couldn't process the sentence. What? He looked up, dead in the eyes. Olivia. She's pregnant. About 10 weeks. I stared at him in silence. Pregnant. 10 weeks. That was before we started counseling. Are you sure it's yours? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He nodded. She told me last week. She didn't want at first. She wasn't even going to keep it. But then, she changed her mind. And you? My voice cracked. What do you want? His mouth opened, then shut. He didn't answer. I laughed. It was bitter. Ugly. Of course you don't know. You never do. I walked to the kitchen to put distance between us. I leaned against the counter, breathing hard. pregnant. A baby. While he was sleeping in my bed, holding my hand in therapy sessions, making me believe we were healing. You need to leave, I said quietly. Sarah, please. I didn't tell you to hurt you too late. I told you because I didn't want to keep lying. I wanted to do the right thing. I turned to him. Now? Now you want to do the right thing? What about when she told you? What about before? When you kept writing her those letters. He stood. I don't love her, Sarah. I don't. But now there's a child. I don't know what to do. I shook my head. You should have thought about that before you whispered, I wish I could tell you how I really feel into someone else's ear. He opened his mouth again, but I walked past him, opened the front door, and pointed. Go figure it out somewhere else. He stood frozen for a moment. Then he walked out without another word. The door shut. Silence again. But this time, it was heavier. That night, I called my best friend, Naomi. She'd known James as long as I had. She'd been the maid of honor at our wedding. And she was one of the few people I trusted completely. When I told her everything, there was a long silence on her end. Then she said something that hit harder than anything James had told me. Sarah, I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't think it was my place. But I think you need to know something. I sat down. What is it? A few months ago, before all this blew up, I saw Olivia. I went cold. What do you mean you saw her? I was at the London Plane, you know, that little bakery near Pioneer Square, and she was there. With James. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I didn't think anything of it at first, Naomi continued quickly. He said she was a coworker. They were laughing. Too much, honestly. I asked him about it later, and he brushed it off. But now, Sarah, she wasn't just a fling. I think they were in a real relationship. My throat tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying I think you were the other woman in your own marriage for months. I hung up and stared at the wall. My whole body went numb. I remembered James's late nights. The canceled date nights. The time he said he had a conference and was gone for 3 days. I'd even dropped him off at the airport. I thought it was a work trip. Now I realized he never brought back a boarding pass. No receipts. Nothing. I opened his laptop again. I searched for one of the letter titles I remembered seeing, The Night in Vancouver. There it was. Dated 5 months ago. And it started, I've never felt more like myself than I did with you in that hotel room. 3 days of peace. I didn't think I could ever be that happy again. 3 days. Vancouver. While I was texting him photos of the dog, asking if he wanted tacos or Thai for dinner when he got home. He was in a hotel bed with her. I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the quiet, realizing for the first time that the person I married, really married, was gone. And maybe he had been gone for a long, long time. But the biggest twist was still coming. And I didn't see it until it walked right through my door. It was 2 weeks after I kicked James out when Olivia showed up at my door. It was a quiet Saturday morning. I was still in pajamas, hair a mess, making coffee. The knock was sharp, 3 quick raps, too confident for a neighbor, too deliberate for a delivery. When I opened the door, she was standing there. Olivia. Pregnant. Very visibly pregnant now. Maybe 16, 17 weeks along. She wore a tight black sweater, her belly pushing against the fabric, her lips painted a shade too bright for morning. My first thought wasn't rage. It was, she's real. She's not just a file on a laptop. Then she spoke. I think we should talk. I didn't say a word. Just stepped back and let her in. We sat in silence for a minute before she said, he didn't tell me you were still sleeping together. My throat tightened. We were married. Still are legally. I didn't know it was like that. You didn't know we were married? No, I knew that. But I didn't know he was lying to you about us. I thought you were separated. I laughed. Not because it was funny. It was the kind of laugh that keeps the tears from falling. Let me guess. He said we grew apart? That we were basically roommates? She looked down. Said nothing. I bet he told you I was cold. Distant. Controlling, maybe. That he tried, but I shut him out. Her eyes filled with tears. You believed him, I said, voice flat. I loved him, she whispered. I slammed my coffee mug down on the table. So did I. For 10 years. And he loved you through half of it, apparently. She flinched. Good. Then she surprised me. I didn't come here to fight you, she said. I came to tell you I'm keeping the baby. And he's already talking about co-parenting. But I need to know something. She looked me dead in the eye. Is he always like this? I blinked. Like what? Charming. Sweet. Devoted. Until he isn't. I stared at her. The room was quiet. Then I said, yeah, that's exactly what he's like. And for a strange second, we were just two women. One used, one discarded, both sucked into the same storm. Before she left, Olivia looked at me and said, you deserved better. I thought I was the one he was choosing. Turns out, none of us were. She walked out without waiting for a response. The silence afterward was deafening. A week passed. Then came the explosion. James texted me, can we talk? Please. I need to explain. I said nothing. He showed up anyway. He looked tired. Pale. A shadow of the man I once knew, but I didn't feel sorry for him. I know you talked to her, he said, stepping inside like he still lived there. I nodded. She told me everything. About Vancouver. About how you said we were basically done. About the baby. He rubbed his face. I panicked, Sarah. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You wrote her love letters while I was folding your laundry. I thought I loved her. I was confused. No, James, I snapped. You were a coward. A liar. And worst of all, you tried to have it both ways. You cried in therapy with me, then held her hand the next day. His voice rose. I never wanted to hurt you. Then why did you? He paused. I was afraid, he said quietly. Afraid I'd already lost you and didn't know how to admit it. And then I broke. You lost me when you stopped talking to me. When you chose to tell a stranger your soul instead of your wife. When you let me believe I was crazy for feeling the distance. That's when you lost me. Tears ran down his face. Real ones. I didn't care. You need to go, I said. You have a baby coming. A real, human consequence. Go be a father. Go figure out who you are. But you don't get to drag me along while you figure it out. He didn't fight it. He just nodded, turned, and left. The next morning, Naomi came over with a bottle of wine and a gallon of ice cream. She held me for a long time without saying anything. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? She asked eventually. I don't know, I said. Maybe. But I'll never forget. And I'll never let someone do that to me again. Over the next few months, I started to rebuild. I joined a local painting group. I traveled alone for the first time, visiting Banff, somewhere James and I always said we'd go but never did. I found my voice again in little things, morning walks, messy art projects, music that didn't remind me of him. Sometimes I'd get texts from James. Updates. Regrets. I never responded. Olivia sent one, once. A photo of a baby girl, soft and pink and wide-eyed. I didn't reply, but I saved the photo. Because none of this was her fault. Now, I sit here writing this, thinking about everything I've lost and everything I've gained. I lost a man I thought I knew, but I gained myself back. I don't know what's next. I don't know if love will find me again. But I do know this, if it does, I'll never shrink myself to fit into someone's lies again. I am not the backup plan. I am not the guilt someone keeps around to feel better. I am the woman who walked away, quietly, powerfully, finally. And this time, I'm not looking back.